Hey David, how are you?
Hi,
Welcome
Mitchell.
everyone.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good everything, depending on where you are based now, right now.
It's a nice day for programming everywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, it's Friday. It's Friday for us. It's Friday afternoon, but anyway, Fridays is always a good time to have some fun while coding, right?
Yeah, let's do some hobby projects and learn something new in the process. Yeah. So I think we have to introduce ourselves a little bit first, right? Do you want to go first?
Okay, I will. Basically, my name is David Gómez, and I'm working as a developer advocate for Axonic for I think more than 2 years now. And actually, probably some of you may have met me at a conference or at some point. If not, I'm looking forward to meet any of you. So in the next conference, meetup, or whatever, if you see me, just come and say hello.
Yeah, I definitely recommend doing so. David is a great guy to hang out with, and he's a very smart guy. So yeah, that will be fun. I am Mitchell. I call myself Code Driven Mitch as a online name, and I'm a solution architect and Axon framework developer with Axonic for about almost 2 years already. So you might have seen me online writing some blog posts or more recently talking at conferences. So uh, I know a fair bit about Axon, and yeah, I'm really excited about it. I want to share that with you.
Okay.
So that's what we plan to do, right?
Yeah. But what okay, we are going to code and we are going to do some personal projects and have some fun, but what are actually we are going to do in more detail? Do you have any idea or
I have any idea? Yeah, I think we're gonna use Axon, right? That's
yeah.
what the live stream is called. So yeah, Axon Framework is a framework that enables you to build evolutionary microservices easily by adopting command query responsibility segregation and event sourcing. And we want to explore that, how we can do that properly. And I think you have the perfect project lined out for that, right, David?
Yeah, actually, we may use as an example because I'm not the only one that is speaking at conferences in Axon, but basically, I'm going to share my screen now so that you can get an idea of what we plan to do. And this is the a tool that my colleague Milan Diankov did some time ago, which is actually something that we are still using to track all the conferences and the call for papers and to submit. And we may use some other, or we may add some other nice features. But the thing is that this is an old application, and maybe we are going to use this as an example of how we could build something using event sourcing, AxonFramework, and Axon Server, and also DDD and CQRS, so that we could illustrate how we can build something like this. So that's pretty much an example or an idea.
Sounds great, David. So we're gonna start small and then build out, right? And explore more, in-depth architectures, technology, and patterns, right?
Right. So that's the point. One of the things that we want to do is we want to start slow. And if you are a developer that just have heard about Axon, uh, don't be don't worry, don't be afraid, because the idea is that we are going to play the role of someone that is just completely new to Axon Framework and Axon Server. So our intention is to start doing this every 2 weeks, but we are going to start from scratch with no requirements or previous knowledge required to follow us, except that you are a developer or Java developer in this case.
Yeah. So what we really want to achieve is also to get your participation. If you are seeing this episode and if you have a question, please put it into the chat and we can put it on screen. Maybe explain some of the concepts in more fundamental, on a more fundamental level. We have tools ready like Excel to go really into depth on questions that are here. So don't be afraid to ask quote unquote stupid question, because it probably isn't going to be one. And yeah, feel free to interact with us during or after the stream when you're watching it back live. During the last screen, we will put our Twitter handles on screen, and you can always reach us via there or via our Discuss platform.
Yeah. Also, for the more experienced Axon developers, if you already have some experience, you can also follow us and give us some suggestions of more advanced topics or any other feature that you would love to see us include in our conference tracker. Who knows? We have started this with no really no planning, not a very strong idea of what we want to do. It's completely up to you. So if you are a more experienced developer, we may even invite you to some session to code with us if you want. So who knows?
That would be fun, David. We haven't even spoken of that, but that would be very cool. Yeah, definitely.
Well, again, we haven't, as you know, we haven't planned.
That's not totally true. We have an empty pom.xml. We have planned something.
Exactly, but this is the only thing that we have. And so, should we get started, or how should we start? If we want to start our conference tracker.
Yeah, so for everyone watching, we are using Code With Me by IntelliJ, which is a great tool. So what you see here is this is an awesome conference tracker. This is me typing while David is actually running IntelliJ. He is going to be the driver. He will be doing most of the coding, and I can correct him if I see a typo or if I want to show him something extra. I think you wanted to learn Kotlin as well, right, David?
Well, that's also a very nice chance to learn things, even us. So if you are already proficient with Kotlin, I would love to learn some Kotlin too.
I know a thing or two about it. Yes, I love Kotlin. I love JetBrains for making it. Thank you if you're watching this. It's one of the best things that has happened for a long time, in my opinion. Well, maybe with virtual threads coming out now, that might be. It definitely is still a big contender.
Okay. Well, we are going to also to play the role of Mitch just told that I'm going to be the driver. So what we plan to do is basically we are going to do some pair programming using Code With Me, as Mitch said. But I'm going to play the role of the newbie, of the guy who just landed on the Axon world. And I will try to play the role of someone that does not necessarily know anything or everything about AxonFramework. So I will be you that are watching us. So anything that you want to ask, just do it, and we will include that on the following session. So do you think that it's time to get started?
I think so, yeah. Let's do some. Well, do you think that writing XML is coding, David?
Well, this is a nice a nice debate to start with. Well, if it's to create the project, I will say yes, that's programming.
All right, let's write some XML.
Okay, so the first thing is are we going to start a project that, because in the end we plan that this is going to be an scalable project, and we are going to finally split in different modules. So we have started with this placeholder, which is basically the root project for all our modules, right?
Yeah. So this will, I think we did talk a little bit in advance, and it's just easier to start out with a multi-module Maven project. Some people really hate them, but I really love them. We can create a modular monolith in one project and then scale out the services, which is a really powerful pattern, if you ask me. And it's really makes you flexible. So how that would work is in your root POM, you define your dependencies, or the versions that should be used for dependencies, and your subprojects then actually use them.
Okay, so let's start by writing our dependency management rules, right?
Yeah, so I think we will be using Spring Boot, right?
Yeah, so let's add the dependencies. On the first dependency, it will be the okay, so we can start. I was going to do something different. So if we are going to use Spring, maybe we can basically extend from the parent.
Oh yeah,
Boot.
you mean that there are two ways to use Spring Boot. One's via
Exactly.
the dependency management, and the other just by being a child project of its parent, right?
Yeah. Group ID, it could be or Spring
If you want
framework.
to, I do have the Spring Boot dependencies ready here, but
Okay, so you can
we can
take
show
those.
both the ways. Maybe that's
Okay, this is. Let me start by adding the artifact ID Spring Boot starter or Spring Boot parent. Spring Boot starter parent. And are we going to use the last version? I had a colleague that always told me that the answer to that question is always yes. Okay, so this is one way of doing it.
yes. So I'm having some problems with my audio, and yeah.
Okay, I was trying to
I
find it.
had a YouTube tab open in the background with our own stream, so I was hearing myself delayed a few seconds. Newbie mistake. But yeah, this is one way, but the other way is to add the Spring Boot dependencies into your project. So in this case, you would use this and you would import the dependencies as a bill of materials. Either way works. A lot of organizations do use the second form though, because that allows you for another root project in your organization. So a lot of organizations have a root parent project, and then you can use both.
Okay, so another thing that I really like to do is whenever we are going to put, well, that's something that you probably also do. Whenever we are going to use any kind of version across a set of dependencies, I really like to use a property to define the version. So especially in a multi-module project, when you need to probably change the version in the future to a different number, it's always much easier to have it.
Yeah, definitely is. But there's an easier way than this that you're doing now. I'm only know the shortcut for Windows, but if you press Ctrl-Alt-C on a version, you can make a property out of it in IntelliJ automatically.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that.
I'm not
Shortcut.
sure what the Mac shortcut is, though.
So, which is in Windows?
Well, it was perhaps there's in the refactor window you can Control Alt V. It is.
Okay, let's see if
you right click on it and you go to refactor and extract property, and then the hotkey will be next to that.
Okay. Okay, this is going to be a Spring Boot version.
And it will do this all for you. So if you know the shortcut, this is a really fast way to just do that.
Perfect. So we have Spring Boot. This is one thing that we are going to use. Which is the second one that we are going to use?
I'm not sure about that. Maybe, do we want Axon?
I will love that. So
we can use Axon in two ways, basically. Or we can import the Spring Boot starter of a certain version, and then the versions will be aligned. We can import the separate modules of AxonFramework, or even easier, we can use our bill of materials, which will import, just like the Spring Boot dependencies, all the correct versions.
Okay. So if we go for the later, it could be, which is the artifact ID?
That's called Axon -bomb.
And then
group ID. Yeah. Version 4.8.2 is the latest. Yeah, correct.
So if I'm going to, it was Control Alt B, refactor. Alt Command B. Okay. So this is going to be Axon version. Perfect. Anything else that we are going? I told you that I would love to learn a little bit of Kotlin. Do we need something specific for that?
Yeah, we do. Kotlin uses a compiler plugin to compile the Kotlin code, and also uses a standard STD library to enable certain functions. However, this is something that IntelliJ will set up for us as soon as we make our first Kotlin file. It will ask us to set it up for us. So I would vote to just make a Kotlin file and see what IntelliJ does.
Okay. But so we need to create our because this is just our root project, right? So for that, if we want to create a Kotlin class, we need to create our first module.
Yeah, but this is not a proper root parent yet, because the root project always needs to be of packaging POM.
Yeah. Well,
and I think we want.
Yeah, the packaging was already here.
Oh, all right. So I do need to get my new glasses. So now it's a proper parent project. And should we just make a conference tracker module now, or a backend module? What do you think?
Sorry again. I will start by creating. Let's just try to start things as easy as possible. I will say that let's try to start with a core module, which is going to have everything, and then we will try to start splitting that as the project grows more complex, right?
So what do you want to call it? I just type modules. Do you want to call it core, or?
Let's call it service. I think that's.
If you alt enter on service, can IntelliJ make that module for you? Yes, off.
Okay, so
this is amazing. I love IntelliJ.
Yeah, we are. I'm not going to add it to Git yet, or should we start adding this to Git?
Yeah, so otherwise it won't be staged for commit, and it will be a pain in the
So
behind later.
Okay.
I think we can move those compiler properties to the parent project, right?
True, because I think they are already defined there.
Yeah,
Aren't
it
they?
didn't pick up that it should be a child module of the parent.
Well, actually, they are not. So I thought. There we go.
All right, cool.
Okay. So do we already have our module? And
well, it's not completely set up yet because it doesn't extend from the parent. If we look at the pom.xml,
yeah,
there's no parent reference here, so it won't work yet.
So the artifact ID could be conference tracker. I think that we have done something because we are actually modifying the POM file, and this is the only thing that the IntelliJ does not refresh automatically. So maybe one thing that we should have done before is actually refreshing because this is parent.
No, but it will work, I guess. Just parent, yeah.
And then
and it still needs the project version.
Let's try to refresh.
It won't work yet. It's not valid yet. The parent also needs a version, and it's easiest to set it just to project.version variable.
Project version. There we are.
Yeah, so now we can import and it will hopefully work.
Well, at least the module has been recognized. And then
oh yeah, the property inside the parent won't work after all. Sorry about that. It's resolving now, and we have the module.
Okay. So let's create the file. Oh no, there's something weird with this module.
Because it didn't have a source directory yet. I just made it for you.
Okay. That's what I was going to do. Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, okay. Let's start with, I don't know, with...
We have a package, I think.
Yeah. Which could be IO Sonic hands on Axon and conference tracker. Is that a very long package for you?
It's long, but yeah, who cares?
Okay, so and here we will start.
If you create a Kotlin class now, it will ask you to add Kotlin to IntelliJ.
Okay, so
hello, Pentasum. Welcome to the stream.
No, I haven't added it yet because maybe we are going to remove that.
But now in the top of the dummy, if you open the dummy file, you see there configure. So all modules containing, let's do all modules, and let's not use a beta version. Let's use the latest, like 1.9.10. So let's see what
Kotlin version has been added to as a property, and then this is
every every module now gets the Kotlin stdlib, which is good. And then every module also gets the Kotlin Maven plugin.
Okay, so we also have the plugin and the dependencies that you were mentioning before.
Yeah, there are some things I would like personally to add to this definition, because if we are using things like GPA and Spring, Kotlin actually prevents us from using that properly, because Kotlin requires all classes to be opened in order to be extended, which is what Spring does.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to copy paste something into here, and then we can show what I just copy pasted from another project.
Okay, go ahead.
I just copy pasted it. You can see here that if you go a little bit down in your screen,
Okay, right here,
then
right?
you can,
Or
under configuration, see that compiler plugins have been added for both Spring and GPA.
okay,
This part I am selecting here. We can set the GVM target to 21 actually, if Kotlin already supports that. We will have to see. But what these plugins do, so for Spring, every class annotated with service, with add component, anything that can be considered a Spring Bean will automatically be opened, which is very handy because otherwise we have to put open in every class definition.
okay,
The same goes for the GPA plugin. It opens all the classes that have GPA annotations. And also, I'm not entirely sure what it does, but it changes a little bit of the GPA entities constructor, so it's usable by GPA.
okay, good. So we are ready to use Kotlin in our projects.
I think so, yeah. We can try it out. Shall we make a Spring Boot application and try to run it?
Okay, so let's create main class, which will be the conference tracker service app, right?
Yes.
And let's call it this Spring Boot application. Oops, something.
Did you just create a Java class?
Yeah. So, okay, we are going to write this entirely in Kotlin.
You don't want to do that?
Yeah, perfect. I was thinking in mixing a little bit of both, but okay, let's remove this. And then let's...
You have to immerse yourself to learn a second language, David.
Exactly. Okay, so this is going to be called a Kotlin Spring Boot, conference tracker
Application.
app service, in case we are going to use another. Okay.
There's just one problem with this, right? I saw you just trying to import the Spring Boot application, but we have not imported Spring Boot yet. We need to add it.
Right, because we have set the dependency management on the root project, but we haven't specified that we are going to use it here, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if we just import the Axon Spring Boot starter, that should be enough. And you can just remove the version because that's governed by the BOM.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's now check. Let's refresh. Something is not. Okay. Connect Spring Boot starter. Did we set the version for the...
It should be part of the BOM, and that should be... Let's see. Dependency management, dependency, Spring Boot dependencies, and the Axon BOM.
And the Axon version is defined over there.
We forgot something, I think, and that's the type POM and scope import here.
True. So let's refresh it.
Yeah, I just did, and it works.
Okay. So now this is the same. I need to add the Spring Boot application, right?
Yes.
Oops. Something is not working. Oh, actually, it didn't get the...
Oh, it didn't get Spring.
No.
All right, then
actually, because that's true, because you can... well, if you are using Axon Spring Boot Starter, it will include the Spring Boot Starter. But
yeah, so I thought that would import Spring automatically as well. I have been wrong, apparently. We also need the normal Spring Boot Starter.
Spring Boot Starter, web, and
we can omit the version again because of the imports.
Okay.
Did it resolve?
It does. Yeah, it is here. So now, yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Now we just need a main class to actually run this baby.
Main class, yeah.
Yeah, in Kotlin that's a little bit different actually, David. Shall I show you?
Yeah.
So in Kotlin there is no main class inside main function inside the class. So you just write function main with args as an array of string. So this is similar to how Java starts. And that one types Spring application.run and then references this class to run it. And we pass it the arguments as a exploded array. And now we should be able to run this.
Okay, let's do it.
No, yeah, okay, so Kotlin doesn't
support Java 21.
Yeah, so since we're using Kotlin, for now we can just put JVM target 17 because we can still use newer Java versions. I will make the edit.
So basically,
if you refresh Maven now, it should work.
Yeah, basically to show everyone where we did change that is on the JVM target under our configuration for the plugin.
I bet that if we had gone for the beta version of the Kotlin, then we would have had GDK 21, but I think it's just too fresh.
Yeah. So project is refreshed, I think. So let's go back. Oh, by the way, just in case I forgot to do this. Now, okay, I have activated in case the people following us don't know when I'm clicking or where I just activated some.
Oh, nice.
Some nice things so that you can see when and where I am clicking. So let's try to run this.
All right.
Okay.
We have a Spring application. And
oh,
now it's
something happened. What happened? Basically, it's trying to connect to somewhere.
Yeah, it seems it's trying to connect to Axon server. Exactly. By default, any AxonFramework application is configured to connect to a local Axon server because that's what works best with it.
Okay.
So
So
we can
basically,
do
the idea here is if we are going to write a scalable application that is going to communicate different modules and send messages, commands, events, and queries over the network, we need some kind of message broker and an event store. And actually, Axon Server is probably is the best option that is already optimized and is easy to use for us for this kind of applications, right?
Yeah, it's definitely optimized for this use case, especially for AxonFramework. Originally, it has been built for all the aspects that AxonFramework has, the event storage, the command routing, but also things like subscription queries. So where you can have many instances of your application, publish updates to queries, and stream them to your front end, which is really cool stuff that I really want to show you later. So I think we should run Axon Server.
Okay, so let's try to download that, because we actually, if we go to the developer portal of Axonic, we will get access to the product page, the Axon server, and then we can click on the download button. So we could run the Docker Axon server as a Docker, but in my case, I had a problem with the Docker daemon this morning. So I'm going to just download the latest version, and we are going to show you how it works. It's really easy to do.
Sounds good. I'm really excited for the new version of Spring Boot DevTools where you can just run a Docker container with your application. Currently, AxonFramework does not support it, but starting with 4.9, which we will release in a couple of weeks, we'll actually have that. But let's run Axon Server just normally for now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe one thing that we could do in a couple of weeks, once that AxonFramework 4.9 is released, we can actually show that.
Yeah, that would be cool. I definitely want to devote some time to that because it's something that Allard has been working on and is very proud of.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can invite him to explain that.
Yeah, he can show it to us. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I know that Josh Long from Spring is also going to show it at the keynote at our conference next week.
Well, so if I click here and I unzip the file that I just downloaded, I'm going to open a terminal. And this terminal, the only thing, once that I have unzipped the file, the only thing that I need to do to run Axon Server is just start as a regular job application. So I have an Axon server.jar file, which is the one that I'm going to start. Okay, and it is starting right now. And in a few seconds, I will see something here. Okay, it has already started one of the ports that it's using for the console. And then it needs to start another port, which is the port that our application are going to use to connect to through AxonFramework.
Yeah, where the actual magic happens.
Exactly. So, but the 8024 is the port where if I point my browser, well, it has not started. I was expecting that.
Yeah, you don't have
typing.
You don't have one of the new Macs that's really fast.
Probably I need to update it. Well, the weird thing is that 8042 something.
Can you put HTTP : / in front of it?
It's exactly what I did. Okay, here we are. So the first time, as this is the first time that I have started or connected to Axon Server, it's asking me to come here. This is the only configuration that I need to do, as I'm going to use this as an standalone server, I will just click here, and this is going to configure server for the first time. So now I have a fully operational Axon server, except for some features that are only on the enterprise or that require some license, but it's completely functional, and we are going to be able to use it for our application. So if I now start the application, or if I restart the application, well, actually, probably,
Yeah, it's already connected.
yeah,
I just
it's
saw
already
the log.
connected because
But it's probably good to show it in an overview, because Axon Server will actually show this application as being connected.
Exactly. So if I go to the dashboard, now I can see the server and our application that is connected, right?
Yeah, and this is really cool, because what the application now does as soon as it connects to Axon Server is it lets Axon Server know I can handle these commands, I can handle these queries, and I want to stream events to this and this processor. So this way, Axon Server always knows to which instance to route a query or command, regardless of where it's coming from, enabling you as a developer to not think about where you need to send that message.
Okay. But so far, this application is not handling anything.
Yeah, because we haven't made anything, David.
Okay, so let's do it.
Yes, let's do that.
So what's the next step? Okay. For that, I guess that we need to think which is the first feature that we are going to support in our conference tracker. What that would be. For example, let's try to support the feature to create or to add a new conference to the list of conferences that we are tracking.
Yeah, that's probably a smart idea to be able to make conferences. And thinking about that, how do you see this model, right? Because like DevOps Belgium comes back every year, and it belongs to the DevOps family. So how should we structure this model? Do you
Okay.
think it would make sense to make one aggregate per family, or to make one aggregate per
So let's try to think which are the concepts that we are defining first. So we are going to have the idea of a conference, right? Let me make this bigger. And oops. Okay. We will have a conference, and then that will be, for example, the box Belgium, right?
Yes.
But then we have a conference edition, which
So
will
this would
be
be 2023 probably,
exactly,
right?
that would be
Which is in less than 2 weeks, guys. And if you're going there, I'll be there as well. So reach out and we can have a beverage or a fun talk.
exactly you should. So, and then the other thing that we were mentioning is we have
Families.
the families.
So these are not, for the people that are watching the streams, this is something that Milan came up with in his conference tracker. Basically, you have a family of conferences sharing the same name and parts of the organization. Then you have actual conferences within the family, and on each of those conferences, most of the time, have a yearly edition. So
Exactly.
this is basically what we are copying from Milan Diankov.
Exactly.
Good that you put the examples there.
Yeah. We can see if you go, by the way, this conference tracker has a way to see all the data, and then we have the conference families, the conferences, and the editions.
Good, we can steal that data.
Yeah.
All right, so we have to think a little bit about what we want to model in our application. Because when we are doing domain-driven design, we often talk about aggregates. And an aggregate is basically your transaction boundary for a certain subject. So if you think about a conference, then that would be your transaction boundary, because you want that conference to be consistent. We often talk about it like cars. So you have a lot of parts in the car, but they belong to the same car, and they are all identified most of the time by their license plate as a whole. You want it to function as a whole. If it's missing its engine, then you want, in a software model, for the car to no longer be able to run when you turn the key. So that would be kind of your aggregate design boundary. And for the conference tracker, I think we will need to think about, like, where are we going to validate stuff? Is that on the conference level? Is that on the conference edition level, or on the conference family level even? What is your first thought about that?
Well, given the fact that we also will define later things like we will have another concept, which is the call for paper. I tend to think that the main thing will be probably the conference, right?
I was thinking the same as well. I think that on the conference level, you would define things like who is in the organization,
Exactly.
and who is making what SHA, and what authorization levels are there for the conference itself, because, well, that might be different for different conferences in the same family.
Yeah. And
And
also things like the website, which is the website they have, is usually specific for the conference.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe conference family is just going to be a property of the conference aggregate, and nothing more than that. But we will see about that later. We can validate that in certain ways.
Okay, so let's pick then conference as our main aggregate, right?
Yes, let's do that.
Back to the code. So I'm going to create a package that could be the model, right?
A package that could be, sorry?
That
The
will be
model.
named the model.
Yeah.
And here we are going to create the Kotlin class, which is the conference, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
So do we need to mark or to specify that this is going to be our main aggregate? How can we do that?
Yeah, we have a nifty annotation in Spring Axon called @aggregate, which makes this a Spring component. And as you see, the IntelliJ plugin immediately recognizes it as a aggregate. And when there are other entities related to it, that will be your icon to navigate elsewhere.
Yeah, for this to work, you need to go to the plugins.
Yes.
And then in the plugins, you can look for AxonFramework plugin and install AxonFramework plugin in your IntelliJ, in your IDE.
And if you have any ideas about new features for the plugins, please let me know. I'm always looking for new ones.
Yeah, actually, he's the one who started this plugin.
No, I'm not the one who started it. I'm the one who revived it after a few years of its demise because IntelliJ was no longer compatible. Or no, the AxonFramework was no longer compatible. But yeah, it was a fun project.
Okay, so let's define the properties, which will be will we require some kind of ID for the aggregate?
Definitely. Like I was telling you about the license plate of the car. So we're also going to need an identifier for our aggregate.
So again, I think that I'm here using my Java syntax. So the way to do this would be by using eval, let's call ID or conference ID.
So this, now you make a constructor based on a property in Kotlin, which normally would be the right way, but we are creating an Axon aggregate. And the constructor of the aggregate will actually be a command. So we need another way to do this. And this is going to be a little bit ugly, but let me show you. We're going to have a late init variable here of type of conference ID of type string. Now, this sounds a little bit odd because normally there are very hard null checks in Kotlin, which make you safe. But the late init basically tells Kotlin that we are going to take care of its nullability later. So now, whenever we have setting this property later during the construction, it will all work out all right.
Okay, so we can remove this from here.
Yes, and we're actually going to make a constructor down here. And we can do that like this, to make a secondary constructor. And here we can handle the commands. But first, I think we need to be able to define a command.
Okay. Is there any other thing that we need to, in order to make it clear for AxonFramework that conference ID is the ID? I mean, the same way that if I'm storing this as an entity on a regular database, I will be marking the class as an entity and the ID as with the ID. Do we have to do something like that?
Yeah, definitely. You can put @aggregate identifier as an annotation on conference ID, which will mark this field as the ID for AxonFramework.
Aggregate identifier.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. So, which is the next step? We need to.
I think we need to define our messages. What is going to be the contract for our aggregate? Which commands are going in, and which events do we expect to go out? I think it would be good to make like an API file where we can define the messages.
Should we put this on the same model package, or if we create another package, it would be easier later on to extract it as another module, as an API module, right?
I would prefer that, yeah, to make an API package.
Okay, so let's create the conference tracker API so that we can extract more easily later on this. So what we are going to create is messages or API. What do you think?
Normally I make two files. One is called commands and one is called events, to make a distinction between the two in the API package.
Okay, and this time I guess that these commands are going to contain several classes. So I guess that it's better to create a file instead of a class directly, right?
Yeah, then we have full control.
Okay, so let me create the other one, which is going to be events.
So for the people watching and never seen Kotlin before, Kotlin allows you to define multiple classes in one file, which makes it useful to group API classes together. So if you have one group of commands, like 5 for the same level in your application, then it might make sense to make one file for them, as you often access them together and want them in an overview. It's just a nifty feature.
Okay, so let's start defining the API and which commands are we going to create. Okay, this is the only thing, or one of the few things that I know to do in Kotlin, data classes.
Yeah, data classes are great. So data
So-
classes, for the people watching, again, data classes are immutable objects with constructor based on its properties. And that's really nice because it's immutable and it has built-in equals and hash code and also a copy method, which makes it really usable.
So let's create an add new conference command, or just new conference command.
I would say that a command is an action, so it needs a verb. You're going to add something or register something or modify something.
Okay,
So I would say that adding a conference will always be a new one. So it could be add conference command, I think.
sure, add conference command. So what we are going to define, or what we are going to have in this command, let's say we will need probably do we require an ID? Yes, we do, right?
I think it depends. If you want your user to generate the ID, then yeah, you need an ID property. But most of the time, it's best practice to let the aggregate decide what its ID will be. And that's often a random UUID to prevent any tampering or any conflicts with an already existing one.
So we can state directly the name.
Yeah.
The string.
And I think the family, right?
Family. But we may have conferences that don't belong to a family. So I guess that this would be an optional argument, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then I will also add the website, for example, and probably the location.
Yeah, although the location is maybe a bit vague, right? Because you have a country, a place, whether it's online, offline. So would it make sense to make that into like a value object here to encapsulate those details that could be part of the location?
Okay, so we can say location, and we can see okay. Well, actually, I will probably identify a difference here. I'm thinking that a conference may or may not have a location, because they may, or we can set the location of the conference to the city. And I'm thinking that maybe a conference edition probably is not useful for the big ones, but the smaller ones may change the venue of the place. So we need to decide whether the location is going to mean the city, or the city and the venue.
Yeah, so I guess we have two levels of locations then, and that location is really a part of the edition. If it can change per edition, then it doesn't make sense to keep it on the top level. Would you say that most of the time it's in the same country though?
Yeah, because
And would you
otherwise
say that
it would
it's
be
most of
called
the time either online or offline?
well, during the pandemic, well, probably most of the conferences changed their names to specify that they were going to be online, even those that were in a specific location or city. So, well, probably I would say that the conferences will be linked to the city at least, and then they may change the venue from the venue meaning the place, the theater, or the physical place that they are hosting the the conference.
Okay, so basically the country and the place always stay the same, as well as whether it's online and offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
then we have a location, and it sounds like we have a venue for the editions.
Exactly. So we will define here. Let's try to put, as we go over it, location. And then we will have here the address of the venue. Okay. So now we need to create that class, I guess.
Yeah, I think that would make the most sense. Yeah. And this could be a data class as well.
Yeah. And the conference location is going to have, for example, country string count city string.
Yeah. Would you include here as well whether it's online or offline?
Oh,
A Boolean is with a capital letter in Kotlin.
Yeah.
Yes. So what if online is true? Does this have a country and a city, or is that nullable at that point in time?
It depends. It may. For example, I remember on DevOps Ukraine that they are running the conference online nowadays, but they also have at least a country.
Okay.
And there are some others that are, for example, the JCon World, which is basically an online conference. It has no city, no country. So I guess that we could set these values as optional, right?
Yeah, I think so as well.
Okay. What else? I think we have everything for our @conference command for now.
Yeah, for now we do, I think. Maybe to add languages later and stuff, but that can be a later feature.
Yeah. Okay, back to our conference aggregate. Then what is the next step that we need to do?
So this would be the first command that ever comes into this aggregate. And so we can define the command handler as a constructor. So we can annotate this constructor with @command handler.
Okay, sorry, I got distracted because I was actually seeing a question by Gerard on the chat. Do you mind if we try to answer it?
Yeah, sure, let's do that. I just put it on screen. So Gerard is asking if there are any disadvantages to letting the sender of the command create the ID. What do you think, David?
Well, the thing is that if we make the sender responsible to create the ID, then the benefit is that we can use customized or meaningful IDs. That it could be, for example, I don't know. Imagine that we are defining the users. We can use the nickname of the user, so we can use that as an ID, and that means that those IDs are meaningful for the business. But on the other side, probably if we let the sender set the ID, then we will need to check the uniqueness of this ID in our set of aggregates.
Yeah. So that is what would, for me, be the biggest disadvantage to letting the user define the ID. If you give them that power, then there is a chance that they are gonna choose an ID which is already known in your system. What happens now is that for that ID, there will already be events in the event store. And now this command comes in and publishes a new event as index 0, as if it's a new aggregate. And an exception will occur because you cannot have two events with the same index. And so the user will get an error. And now if you in your aggregate handle your command and you define the ID, you are in control to make it, as you say, you make it meaningful, right? You can give it a business value, or you can make it completely random to make it safe from enumeration attacks. Enumeration attacks is where people enumerate IDs in order to try to get access to other accounts, which is basically impossible if you would use a random UUID used by the server. So I would always vote to keep the ID generation in your business logic and in your aggregate as much as possible.
And then I guess if we use these server-generated IDs, even in the case that we want to use user IDs that are meaningful for the users, we could just model that as an extra attribute like screen ID or screen name or whatever.
Yeah, correct. We can also do something where we have a command handler that is not a constructor and then check based on what's been loaded from the event store, whether it's already been claimed, and give a meaningful message back to the user. But that's also part of our business logic.
Well, so sorry, Mitch, I interrupted you when you were trying to explain me the alternative to the constructor.
Yeah, so we want to handle this command now that we've created. And in order to do that, this will always be the first command. It will always create a new aggregate. So we use a constructor. And how command handlers work in Axon, and most message handlers actually, is that the first argument of a function is going to define which message it's going to handle. So if we give this constructor a parameter of type the add conference command or create conference command, I cannot recall which one it was,
then
Axon will understand it needs to handle that payload.
Okay. So can we use this default constructor for doing that? Or do we need
yeah, we can use this one.
Okay. So then the thing is, let's add as a parameter here the command.
Start with the variable name. Yeah, colon.
And this was add conference command, right?
Yeah, exactly. So now we have a constructor and we have defined the payload, but we haven't told Axon yet that this is a command handler. So we need to annotate it with command handler annotation.
Okay.
Now IntelliJ is complaining because could not autowire, no beans of add conference command type found. I haven't seen that one before, but we can safely ignore it for now. I will investigate it. Why that happens for you and has never happened for me.
Yeah. Actually, another cool thing is that here I see that another symbol that is coming from the AxonFramework plugin, which tells me that this is a command and we are receiving the command, and I could navigate to any other component that is creating or sending this command. But in this case, we don't have any other creator for this message. Probably we will see that later, right?
Yeah, we don't have it yet, but we will make it.
Yeah.
So now we want to handle this command, right? And the state of an aggregate is defined by all its events that has happened prior. So probably to really make this aggregate, we want to publish a first event so it has some history to build state from. And that's what we do by publishing events. In this case, we want to publish, so let me rewind. So what we do in a command handler is we take the command and the current state and then apply the events that are necessary to reach the intended action. In this case, we don't have any state, and what we want is to make a conference. Okay. And So I think it's pretty clear that we need a new event, like a conference added event, that we will use to indicate that a conference has been added.
Okay, let me try to share with you this graph. So actually, we are having a model, and the model is going to receive an add conference command, and this conference command is going to actually emit an event saying that the conference has been added or created. And then, because when we receive the command, we are not going to change the state of our aggregate. That's something that is done or is proposed by event sourcing, because event sourcing means that all the changes to the command will be done by reacting to the list of events that you have received.
Yeah, and we will actually create those states from the events by using event sourcing handlers. So if we define an event, we will show you and we will set the ID and
Okay,
see it happen.
so then here what we should do is basically on the command handler, we should always do the validation. That's the only one thing that we could do over the command to check if we need to check any constraints of the command before actually accepting them. And event notifying the change produced by the command. And then we will have another, I guess, a function.
Yeah, correct.
That will handle an event, right?
Yeah.
That was what you were proposing.
Yeah, exactly.
And this event is going to be, this is something that we need to define. That could be the event that we are going to send here, which will be the conference added event, right? That could be a valid name. So we need to create the event here, right?
Yeah, I think we can copy the command as a base, right? Because we want exactly the same properties in this case as... It's a bit lazy, but in this case, probably the easiest way.
Conference added event.
It's just that it's going to have one additional property, which is the identifier that we're going to generate when the command comes in.
And this is the conference ID string.
Now, if you Alt-Enter at the start of a val, then IntelliJ has an option to do that automatically for you, to line them out per line. Let's see.
Put parameters on separate lanes. Perfect. Okay. So we now have the conference added event.
Yeah, and now we need to set the identifier, as that's the state that Axon will need. So in this handler, we will use the data from the event to set the identifier.
Okay, so like
this. And we need to mark it for Axon as an event sourcing handler. You will see that it also automatically recognizes in the plugin that you can handle that event, but we have to apply it as well, so it's published in the first place.
Okay. So to do that, we should use the aggregate life cycle.
It's with an I, yes.
Apply. and then we need to create here the conference.
You don't need a new
in Kotlin.
Kotlin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, my Java devil is typing here. Conference.
I have it the other way around. Recently, I was writing Java code again instead of Kotlin, and it was way more difficult.
So here we are. How we are going to? Can we use the for now generate a random UID for the?
Yes, definitely. That's one of the things I would normally recommend using. You can also use the identifier factory provided by Axon, which also by default generates a random UUID.
Sorry again.
You can also, let me show you. I'll create a second one. You can also use the identifier factory that generate identifier. This is a component from Axon, and this will generate an identifier for you. And the default implementation is a random UUID. You can override that for your whole application.
Okay.
But it was just to show it off. It's not really necessary. So
okay, but if we are going to share this code, let's try to leave that. I really like that. And we can say, for example, that by default, this is equivalent in Axon to okay.
I've just started taking over the command parameters.
Perfect.
And I did it wrong because this is the website. The very cool thing about Kotlin as well is that it's really hard to see if we have the order right in these parameters, right? Maybe I switched the name and the website.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I did this, and it would seem right. But Kotlin has a feature of named parameters. And I did this via the Alt-Enter menu, add names to parameters. And now you can see that it easily see if the parameter names match.
Okay, cool.
So now we have a command handler. We publish an event, and we have an event sourcing handler that sets the identifier so AxonFramework knows which aggregate identifier to publish the event under. For now, we could set the state that's in the event on the aggregate. However, we don't need this state yet for validation.
Yep.
There's no second or third command that needs the state. And generally, in order to keep your application as concise and effective as possible, we recommend only putting state in the aggregate that you are actually using. So you are later more flexible for change.
Yeah, true. So that means that we are not going to add any other variable to the aggregate until we discover that we need them for any kind of validation, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing is that if we do that, as we are going to recreate all the aggregates in the future based on the past events, that change will also take into account or it will work for past events too.
Yeah, it will. It will replay those events. So whenever Axon encounters that it needs a command for this aggregate, it will load the past events, find the event sourcing handlers, execute them, and then execute the command. So if we expand these functions, it will take effect.
Yeah. So actually, another cool thing that I'm seeing here is that we also have, for example, here an event sourcing handler, and if I click here, it will point me to the place where the event has been created. Well, in this case, it's pretty close enough, but if the event sourcing handler or the event handler is in another class, it will also point me to all the places where this event is taken care of.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
we probably need an endpoint to create the event or something, right?
Yeah.
To create the command and send it.
Okay. So let me create another package here, which is going to be the REST area, just in case we decide to move the REST API or UI to a different module in the future, right? So I should create another Kotlin class, which is going to be the conference. Oh, conference. Let's keep it shorter. REST or conference REST controller or REST service.
Yeah, often we call it controller because the annotation in Spring is also REST controller,
Yeah.
so it really matches up nicely.
Okay. So let's add this as a REST controller from Spring. And then I guess that the thing that we need to define is a function that is going to create the conference, which is going to receive what?
So in this case, we could just use the command as a parameter. There are up and downsides to that. So if you later want backwards compatibility with your aggregates, you will need to have a DTO here or a request model. However, at this point in time, I think that's a little bit much to do, and we can just use our command as our API.
Okay. I was going to propose you the same just to keep it easier, but it's always better to have separate models for the REST API and the internal API. But in this case, as it's basically the same thing, yeah, again, that was me new. It's add command. Add conference command. And this is going to return what?
So this will generate a... For now, it's not going to return anything. Let's just create a function without any return.
Okay. And we shall annotate this as a post mapping.
Yeah.
To, for example, conference, right?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So
and now we need to wait to dispatch the command, and AxonFramework has the command gateway for that.
Okay, so let me see if I learned something from before. We are going to need a variable to inject some kind of abstraction that allows us to send the command, right?
Yeah,
correct. That in Axon is called a command gateway, right?
Yeah, it is.
So that means that we are going to need to define a var late init, right? But it was the other way around.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
Command gateway. So that's it, right? And I need to import the command gateway.
Yeah, and now you just need auto-wired on top of it.
True.
However, this is one of the most ugly ways to do this in Spring with Kotlin. Let me show you how I would do it. I make it a property of the constructor, and Spring will inject it for us.
Okay.
And as you see, I've immediately made it immutable and private, so we cannot change the variable in any way.
Okay. And we don't need the auto-wired in this case. So I'm going to
That's
clean...
because of the Spring plugin of Kotlin.
Okay. So I'm going to clean the imports and remove the auto-wire. Perfect. So now what we want to do is we just want to send the command through the gateway, right? So command gateway, then send and let's create the add conference command. Well, it's basically, we are going to send the same thing, right?
Yeah, correct. Now you can see that it has a red underlining because Kotlin doesn't understand what the generic is in the send because their generic is the return value. So we know that this is a command that creates an aggregate and it will return a string. So
Yeah.
we can put here between the type that we will have a return type of string in the completable future.
Okay. And that string will be?
That will be the new aggregate identifier.
Okay.
And that's useful because by returning this to the front end can now navigate to the new conference for the user.
Okay. So let
However,
me, by the way, is there any way that we can add some login here?
well, 1 second first, David, because we're not ready with this function yet. This command gateway.send, it dispatches it dispatches the command and returns a completable future that it's going to be completed in the future.
Yeah.
So now we send it, we return the endpoint without returning any data to the user. So we should return this. We can say return command gateway, and then we can say to Spring that this entire function returns a completable future of type string. Now Spring will actually handle that completable future for us, and well, it will just work. We can even return this, and we can even make it a shorter function, but I don't really like this. This is basically valid in Kotlin. In this case, I'm not really sure whether we should want that. We could even do this, actually.
Yeah.
Because this is an expression function instead of a block body. But if you want any more logic in your function, you're going to need... you're going to need a function.
Okay, another cool thing of returning a completable feature to Springboot is that actually it's going to allow Spring to release some of the threads that you could have in your application server, because actually the completable feature is going to, or the return value of the completable feature is going to be handled by this completable feature, not using one of the thread pools in the application server or Tomcat or whatever you're using. I actually have a funny experiment with that I have been using in one of my recent talks, and it's funny how to even set in a slow command controller that took 1 second to return the command or to process the command actually could still be accepting much more requests from the application server. So that's
cool.
actually a cool thing that Spring does when you return a completable feature or a feature.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so are we done with this?
I think so. We should try it out.
Okay. Is there any way that we can add some kind of login or to the Kotlin classes, so that, for example, we can check that the conference tracker is invoking the command handler and then the event sourcing handler?
We could, but we can also see the events in Axon server appearing that it's been executed.
Okay. So I'm going to restart this. Oh, the conference.
Yeah, I think the last time you didn't press the play button in the gutter here, so it didn't actually create a run. So you execute the file now, not the Spring Boot application.
Okay, so I'm going to...
So if you press the play button in the gutter here, instead it will make a correct run configuration.
Well, it's already running. I will do that.
Yeah, but just for the future, it's easier if you...
So let's check. We have the Axon server with the application connected.
Yeah.
And then
if you click on the application, you'll be able to see the handlers that have been registered.
exactly.
So now
Now,
Axon server knows there's an add conference command.
exactly. So let's try to send some commands, and for that I'm going to create. This is another very useful thing that I like from IntelliJ. If I create a file which is request HTTP, and then I can directly put here my sample commands like localhost 8080 conference, and then I can say that this is going. I can add the request headers here, like saying this is going to have a content type, which is application JSON, and then I can write the request that we are going to do, and let me check the command.
Doesn't it? Last time I did this, it had auto-completion for me. Oh, it doesn't because we forgot an annotation on the request parameter.
Sure.
We didn't put the request body parameter on it.
True. Exactly.
I cannot import it for some reason. Yeah.
No, it's not. Another thing that I've seen. Okay, no, don't worry.
Now, here, see now if you go to the HTTP file now and you type something, you have autocompletion actually.
Yeah, true. So I can have the name, which will be Drive1. It's a nice conference, this one. And also the location would be location. This probably, let me check, because location will be country, then Netherlands, city is Amsterdam, and online is false. Okay, and now I need to, and I think I have another family. We are not going to set a family, and then the website is going to be https drive1. So that should work, right?
Is it driven.co or .com?
.co is
okay.
Because we are playing with the unconference.
Ah, all right.
That's okay. So if I play here, we should send a request. Oh, this is a bad request.
Yeah. So what does the server say? I think it's gonna complain about the missing property.
Validation failed for argument 0. Completable future. Create conference. Error in object. Add conference command. Parameter specified as non-null is null. The name.
Yeah. All right. So you haven't restarted the application server since I added the parameter.
True. So okay, let's now do this. So if I click here,
No, not there, not there. No, on the left in the gutter, left of the funnel main.
Okay. True.
Because now you execute the whole file as a Kotlin script and it will run, but IntelliJ doesn't actually recognize it's running a Spring Boot application. Because it's just executing a Kotlin file.
Yeah. Actually, I'm used to use the Command Shift R to start this, but I was clicking here just to be more to
Next
visualize
time
what.
you can do that now.
Yeah. So we have again our application connected, and then if I go to the HTTP request, okay, now it worked.
Right. So we have a conference being created. Can we see the events in the Axon server?
Yeah. If we go to the Axon Server console, we go to the commands, and now we see that there was one command issued. And if we go to the search and we search for all the events, here we have the event that have been.
Oh, but David, I hate XML. We have to change this.
Okay, how can we do that?
Well, everything in AxonFramework is serialized with a serializer. And by default, that's on Extreme because that used to be really good a long time ago. Well, until GTK 17 closed off most of its modules. So now it's generally better to use Jackson. And we can set some Spring Boot properties in order to do that.
Okay, so it's something that we can directly solve with just new.
I think you need to make a new
folder,
resources.
Directory resources, and then we need to define here an application, which is application properties, and then which is the property that we should use for this?
That's axon.serializer.events. So we have 3 different levels, and we can set them all to Jackson. And that will auto-configure the framework to use Jackson for events. But now we will still use XML for messages and for commands. So it's better to set all 3 levels of serializer to Jackson immediately.
Messages to Jackson, right?
Yeah,
and also we can remove this, right?
Yeah, you can. And even if you replace messages by general, it should be completely
okay. General.
Yeah.
Perfect.
General.
Okay, so let's stop the application, and then now we have the conference tracker here. Let's start it again. And now I'm going to modify to add a second post to add another very cool conference. Let me check here, which is called Axonic Con. The future is event driven. And then the URL, this is the one that I have like here, could be this one. So if I now add this, again, this seems to have worked. And if I go here and repeat the search, then
oh yes, we have JSON now.
Are you happier now?
I'm way happier. Yeah.
Okay, we still have 20 minutes for today. Can we, for example, try to implement, do you think that we will have time to implement something that could give us a list of all the conferences that we have?
Oh yeah, definitely. So based on the events that have happened over all the aggregates, we can make something that we call a projection. And this is where we basically use the data in the events to make a view and well, make it queryable. So let's do that, and let's just do it in memory for now.
Yeah, it will be easier for now. So let's create another class and let's call it conference list projection, right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so I guess that the only thing that we need here, okay, well, we need probably a list of, if we are going to keep the list of conferences in memory, probably it's good to have a list of so can we also initialize that as a constructor, or should we
We don't need to initialize it as a constructor, because then Spring will think it's a dependency.
okay,
We can just, because we already know it's a list and we will never change it, we can just put a private val conference list here. And then put, yeah, we don't even need a type. We can just type as, yeah, if you remove the colon and type an equal sign instead, without as. Yeah.
okay,
Then now you can do mutable list of with a small letter.
mutable list.
Let me show you.
Okay. Okay.
So
Sure.
now you have created a mutable list to which you can add items and remove items.
Okay.
So of course you can also specify the type,
Yeah,
but it's just very redundant.
Yeah, true. Okay, so the next thing that we need is probably a function that is going to handle the events that we have already been sending to notify that a conference was added. And this was conference event, conference added event, right?
Yeah, correct.
And we need to annotate this as an event handler, which means that we are going to receive those kinds of events. And in this case, the only thing that we need to do probably is conferences at event.name, right?
Exactly. There's just one little thing missing, and that's the Spring annotation on this class.
Oh, true.
Because otherwise it's not recognized as a bean, and AxonFramework will not pick up the event handler.
Okay, that's it.
Well, yeah, indeed. And we also want to be able to query it, right? So it's nice that we have this list in memory. But we also want to receive it.
Perfect. So for that, we should be able to have a get mapping, right? In the controller, which is going to be a function, which is going to be list conferences. That is going to receive nothing because we are going to return all the conferences for now, right? And it's going to return a list of strings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Then we are going to map this as a get mapping to conference, which, by the way, we could move this here. No. And then we could remove. So now the next thing that we need is to send somehow a query, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we have, just like the command gateway, we have a query gateway. But
query gateway, which?
Yeah, the fourth one.
Query.
Yeah. And we need the commas at the end. Yeah. What I always like to do in Kotlin is, because you will always need it, is just put a comma at the end of each of these lines. It works for data classes, it works for constructors, and that way it will be easier later.
Okay. So here what we are going to do is, I guess we need to send query. We need to send query. Wait, sorry. We need to send a query, which is going to, I guess that we need to define in the API. I will create probably another Kotlin file for queries, right?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Queries. Oops. And then here we are going to create a data.
So we don't need any properties on the class, so we can just make it a class.
Yeah, true. Because this is going to be all conferences query.
So for the people watching, what's happening is whenever you define a query or command or event in Axon, the name of that message becomes the payload type. So in this case, the name of this class would become the query io.axonic.handsonaxon.conferencetracker.api.allconferences query. Of course, we can override that, but this is the default behavior, and it's actually a really nice way to define your API and share that project over multiple classes. Applications.
Cool. So now we can say here that we are going to send all conferences query.
Yeah.
Then we need to specify the response, the type of the response, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Axon does query routing also based on the response. So we have a utility class for that. That's called response types. You're missing an S.
Response types. Okay.
Yes, and then you can say expect one instance of. So if we would have a string, one string, then we would take this. But I think we have multiple instances of.
Yeah. Actually, we are returning a list.
Yeah, so we have multiple instances of a string. It's class.java. Yeah, that one.
And then this is complaining.
Yeah, it still needs .java.
.java. Sorry. Okay, and we need to return this, right?
Yeah, and it's probably going to be a completable future of list of strings, actually. But that might be nice. No, I mean as the return type of the...
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can just push Alt-Enter on the query gateway part, the red part, and it will suggest it.
Yeah. True. Okay, so if we are sending the query, then we need a query handler, right?
Yeah, we do. So we can define that just like the event handler with the payload type of the query, and Axon will find it.
So let's define a function on query all conferences queries, and then we can define this as a query handler, right?
Yeah, correct.
And the only thing that we need to do here is just return the list. Return
Spanish keyboards, right?
Yeah, true. Return the safe thing here will be to return a copy of the list that we have, right?
Oh yeah, that could be. But we can probably just do that by conferences.clone or copy.
Clone, or can we use just list
On conferences, you can probably do toList. Let me check. I've never done it like this before. Yeah, so just toList again. We'll make it
toList. Okay. So that's it, right?
Oh, yeah, one semicolon too much,
Yeah.
Mr. Java. But
I love semicolons. And then
we're gonna have a problem then, Mister. All right.
Okay.
Let's try it out.
Yeah. Let's restart this.
So I think we are going to run into an issue. And let's see when that happens.
Okay. Well,
yeah, there it is. So the first event, what's happening now is this projection is receiving all events from the store and trying to replay it after it's deserializing it as just a JSON. However, the first event we have is XML.
True.
So what probably would be the easiest way in this case is to stop Axon server, delete the data, and try again.
Well, in a production case, if we were in production and we will have a lot of these things, there is a way that we can solve this, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, which is why we really, really, really recommend to have your event format immediately defined as you start your application, as you deploy to production. However, many people have started using Xstream in the past, and this is now causing problems for them with GDK 17. I understand that, and that's also why I have created a blog, which allows you to migrate the stuff in your event store.
Okay.
However, we are not going to be able to do that in 5 minutes.
Yeah. So this is something that we maybe can be discussing in another session.
Yes, I will put the link to the blog into the chat right now, so people that are interested in this can read it.
Okay. So let's stop this.
So that might be you can just remove the data directory, right?
Exactly. And then let's start Axon server again.
Did you also remove the log directory?
No.
All right, you need to remove that one as well, because Axon server, when it distributes data, it actually writes to a log before applying the stuff to your event store. So it keeps up and is highly replicated using Raft. However, if we now boot up the server without removing log, it will find that and recover the event store based on those contents.
Yeah.
So remove both data and logs, which you already have done.
Now I need to start it again.
Can you remove the banner from the stream? I cannot. Oh, wait, I can. Never mind.
Okay, let's wait until this is finally started. Okay.
And then we're going to need to make the conferences again, right? Because we don't have the data anymore.
Yeah, true. Okay, now we are in the same state that we were at the beginning. Let's start it again. And in 3 minutes, let's try to check.
No, we can make that, but we can change the HTTP file already to include the GET call. That will save some time for the last part of the stream.
Exactly. Let's do this to do a GET conference, and then we don't have anything else.
No. Well, we can execute it now, right? Let's see what it does. The server is still running.
Well, but it's given an internal state error because actually it lost the connection to the Axon
Oh,
server.
of course. Yeah, we're going to need to restart this application as well, probably for the best.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this has already started and
Yeah, you really
probably
need to upgrade to the M1 or the M2.
probably soon.
I
Well, actually,
recently
I'm running on an M1.
really?
Yeah,
Oh,
probably it's the streaming software that also takes a lot of resources.
oh yeah, probably.
Usually, when I screen share and I'm streaming, things take some more time. So this has restarted. Something. What's happening? Okay, perfect. This is let's because we need to do again the initial configuration.
Yeah. But now it will start working.
Yeah.
Right.
Now I have the application already connected. Now I have it here, and then we can just.
Let's first see the empty list. Ah, too
Oops.
late.
No. Well,
Internal
something.
server error. Why? No adapter for handler. The dispatcher. I've never seen this error before in my life.
Neither do I.
Let's reboot for
Yeah. Well, let's try
no
to
adapter for handler.
do things in an order manner. Okay. So
But this was a Tomcat error. That's weird.
yeah, that's why. Let's now that we have.
All right, let's try again.
This is connected. Now we have both the query and the conference tracker. And if we hit here, we have no events. And if I click on the query, wow, it's giving us an internal server error. Again, the same.
Yeah, I think you need to rebuild your entire project, shut it down, and then IntelliJ in compile. So in your top menu, you have the build and rebuild project. That will clear all the data and make it really rebuild from scratch. No handler for a no. Let me Google that.
Okay, let's try. The application is connected. And now if I run the query, no, it's giving us conference.
Yeah, so it might have something to do with the completable future of mutable list string. So let me try something and then we will restart the. Let me see if this works instead. It's less beautiful, but
Okay. I'm going to restart. No. No. Okay, let's try to disable this. No, we are having the same.
That's strange. The only thing that we did was remove the URL from the post mapping and the get mapping, as far as I know.
Yeah, let me.
Would that be the cause that we just need to do this? But that would be weird. I've never
Yeah.
seen this behavior before in Spring.
Actually, it's supposed to work both ways. Let's see. Now it works.
And now it works.
It's weird.
All right.
So
I think we will find out why outside of the stream.
probably
I'm enabling the
get
method.
mapping. Okay. I'm going to restart.
We can go a few minutes into overdrive.
Yeah.
I already know why, David. The REST controller argument is the name of the controller, not the path of the controller.
Okay.
So we were calling a non-existent endpoint. It needed a at request mapping upon the,
True.
or I believe it has a different property there as well. No. Yeah,
Well,
you need a request.
let's check that now it works. So if I click here, then I get the driven because it's the only one that I marked before. Now let's call this, and if I call the query again, now I have two different conferences.
Yeah. So what happened here? The first item was already in the list from a previous run because it reconstructed it based on what was already in the event store.
Exactly.
Even if we would restart now, we would have both of them, which is a really cool feature.
Let's do that because that's quick. If we restart our application, even though our conference tracker, our projection is keeping all the conferences in memory, when it restart, is going to connect to Axon server and is going to retrieve all the previous events and is going to reconstruct that in memory list. So if I already do this, we will have both conferences.
So I think this is it for today, right, David?
Yeah, we have completed the circle. We have sent the command to change something, which is adding a conference, and we have created an event that sends that event to other elements like the projection, and we have been able to send a query to retrieve all the previous stored conferences. So I would say it's a good place to leave it for today.
I think it makes sense to, now we have done this, next time look into multi-entity aggregates and see how we want to structure this and build out the system.
Perfect.
Yeah. So thank you everyone who is watching the stream for joining. If you see this recording in the future, Let us know what you think or put something in the chat. And hopefully see you all in about 2 weeks.
Perfect. So have a good weekend, everyone, and see you next time.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.